Admiral Karzak stood at the observation deck of the Galactic Engineering Academy's command vessel, his forearms crossed in what humans would recognize as a gesture of skepticism. His iridescent scale shifted from deep purple to an anxious green as he watched the supposedly primitive Deathworlders approach the wreckage of the Celestial Sovereign. Those humans, walking, no, practically bouncing, toward one of the most sophisticated pieces of engineering in the known galaxy as if they were approaching a broken hover scooter. "Absolutely preposterous," he muttered, his vocal sacs vibrating with frequencies of disapproval. "Professor Nexus, please remind me why we're allowing cadets from a Class 12 Deathworld anywhere near our most advanced warship." Professor Nexus, her crystalline form glinting under the binary star's light, projected a holographic display of the human's credentials. "Admiral, their academic performance has been unprecedented. They completed our standard 4th-century engineering curriculum in just 3 Earth years." 3 years? Impossible! Karzak's scales flashed a brilliant orange of disbelief. The quantum manifold calculations alone take 2 centuries to master. "They claim they winged it." "Whatever that means," Nexus responded, her crystalline structure vibrating with what could only be described as a nervous chuckle. "But they've yet to be wrong." Below them, the Celestial Sovereign lay in majestic ruin. The warship's quantum crystalline hull, normally a seamless masterpiece of engineering that took generations to grow, now displayed a massive fracture along its port side. Radiation leaked from its core like golden smoke, creating aurora-like patterns in the atmosphere of this uninhabited moon. "This ship," Karzak declared, his voice dropping to a reverent whisper, "represents 10,000 years of our finest engineering. The quantum crystalline matrix alone took 3 centuries to achieve perfect resonance. The neural pathways required 5 generations of our finest biotechnology engineers to cultivate, and now these monkeys think they can repair it in 30 minutes. A soft chime interrupted his tirade. Dean Starweaver, their most distinguished academic, glided into the observation deck on anti-gravity pads. "Admiral, the humans request permission to begin their assessment. They've brought their tools?" The last word emerged with such distaste that Starweaver's tentacles curled inward. Through the observation window, Karzak spotted what the Dean referred to. His scales shifted to pure white in shock. A toolbox. An actual physical primitive toolbox with... Was that duct tape hanging out of it? "By the eternal void," Karzak breathed. "They're going to attempt to repair a quantum crystalline warship with physical tools? This isn't just impossible, it's insulting." "Should we stop them?" Professor Nexus asked, her crystalline form clouding with concern. Karzak's scales settled into a deep blue of resignation. "No, let them try. Let this be a lesson in humility for them. After all, what's the worst that could happen?" The moment those words left his vocal sacs, he regretted them. Everyone knew that tempting fate with such phrases was dangerous enough on a regular day. But with humans involved? He had just guaranteed this would be anything but a normal day at the Academy. "Begin the countdown," he ordered, trying to maintain his dignity. 30 minutes to prove 10,000 years of engineering wrong. This should be interesting." The 3 human cadets approached the Celestial Sovereign with what Admiral Karzak could only describe as disturbing casualness. Through the ship's enhanced audio pickup, he could hear their conversation, which seemed wildly inappropriate given the gravity of the situation. "Holy smokes, Marcus! Look at the size of that quantum flux regulator." Sarah Chen, nicknamed Wrench by her classmates, practically bounced with excitement. Her thick black hair was tied back in what she called a messy bun, though to alien observers all human hairstyles appeared to be various degrees of chaos. Marcus Spark Rodriguez whistled, a sound that caused several crystalline faculty members to vibrate in distress. "You know what this reminds me of? That time my abuela's ancient coffee maker broke down. Same energy signature. Your grandmother's coffee maker reminds you of a 10,000-year-old quantum warship." Dean Starweaver's tentacles twisted in horror. "Well, yeah," Marcus grinned, adjusting his toolkit. "Everything's got a rhythm, right? This baby's just singing a little off-key. Alex MacGyver Thompson, the third human, was already circling the ship's damaged section, occasionally stopping to knock on the quantum crystalline hull, an action that caused Professor Nexus to emit a high-pitched frequency of distress. "Please," she vibrated urgently. "That hull took centuries to grow to perfect resonance. You can't just knock on it like a primitive door." "Actually," Alex replied, pulling out what appeared to be a rubber mallet from their toolkit, "that's exactly what we need to do. See, everything has a natural frequency. Even quantum crystalline matrices. Spark, you getting readings on that multimeter?" "Multimeter?" Admiral Karzak's scales shifted through 7 shades of disbelief. "They're attempting to measure quantum fluctuations with what even is that device?" Sarah pulled out something that made the entire alien faculty gasp in unified horror, a roll of silver tape. "We might need to stabilize that crack before we start the repairs. Anyone got a marker? I need to mark the resonance points." "A marker?" Dean Starweaver's tentacles went limp. "They want to draw on the holy quantum crystalline with a primitive ink stick?" Professor Nexus quickly pulled up the human's academic records again, desperately searching for some justification for this madness. But their solutions to the theoretical quantum manifold problems were brilliant. They showed perfect understanding of 11-dimensional space-time curvature. "Oh, that." Marcus waved casually while connecting what appeared to be jumper cables to 2 points on the hull. "Yeah, we just figured if you look at quantum space-time like a bowl of spicy ramen, it all makes sense. The noodles are the space-time strings, the broth is the quantum foam, and the spicy bits are the probability matrices." There was a moment of absolute silence in the observation deck. Did they just compare our most advanced theoretical physics to a food item?" Admiral Karzak asked weakly. "Hey, Alex," Sarah called out, now somehow hanging upside down from a damaged section of the hull. "Remember that trick we learned in Dr. Martinez's class about using bubble gum to detect microfractures? We are not using bubble gum on the Celestial Sovereign." Dean Starweaver's voice reached frequencies previously thought impossible for their species. "Of course not," Alex replied seriously, and for a moment the alien faculty relaxed. Then they continued. "We'll need at least 3 different flavors to map the quantum resonance properly. Mint for the primary matrix, strawberry for the secondary, and grape for the tertiary systems." Marcus was already unwrapping what appeared to be an entire pack of the mentioned items. 25 minutes remaining," the ship's AI announced calmly. Admiral Karzak watched as the humans began what appeared to be a completely random series of actions involving duct tape, bubble gum, and what looked suspiciously like a modified Earth toaster. "Professor Nexus," he said quietly, his scales now a pale shade of resignation. "Please tell me they at least passed their safety certifications." "Oh, yes," she replied brightly. "They only blew up the quantum lab twice, the lowest number in Academy history." Somehow this was not as reassuring as she seemed to think it was. "The main quantum core is completely out of alignment," Sarah announced, her voice echoing from inside a maintenance shaft that, according to Academy records, shouldn't even exist. "Looks like someone tried to compensate by routing power through the tertiary backup systems." Admiral Karzak bristled. "That's completely impossible. The Celestial Sovereign's quantum core is sealed within 20 layers of security protocols. How did you even access it?" "Oh, we found a maintenance hatch," Marcus replied casually, his head poking out from behind a panel. "Well, technically, we made a maintenance hatch." Sarah noticed the hull resonance was slightly off near section 47B, indicating a structural weakness in the quantum crystalline matrix. "So naturally, we—" "You made a hole in my ship?" The Admiral's scales flashed so brightly they nearly blinded several nearby faculty members. "Not a hole," Alex corrected, emerging from another impossible access point, with what appeared to be a common drinking straw in their mouth. "More like We convinced the quantum crystalline structure to temporarily adopt a door-like configuration. Pretty cool, right? Professor Nexus's crystalline form clouded with confusion. But the quantum crystalline matrix can only be manipulated through centuries of careful resonance tuning. Our finest engineers spent generations perfecting the harmonic frequencies required to— Yeah, about that, Sarah interrupted, now somehow hanging upside down from a power conduit. You guys were way overthinking it. The matrix responds to simple harmonic frequencies. Watch this. She pulled out what appeared to be a small earth musical instrument, a kazoo, and played a short tune. To the horror and amazement of the alien observers, a section of the supposedly impenetrable hull simply rippled and opened. The prophecy spoke true, Dean Starweaver whispered in awe. When the great architect Xiphon designed the celestial sovereign 10 millennia ago, they said only those who could hear the song of the stars would truly understand its secrets. Pretty sure they didn't mean literally playing Sweet Home Alabama on a kazoo, Marcus muttered, but he was already busy attaching what looked like modified Christmas lights to various critical systems. 20 minutes remaining, the ship's AI announced, somehow managing to sound both amused and concerned. Alex was now consulting what appeared to be an ancient paper manual. Okay, so according to the quantum flow patterns, this ship was designed to be the pinnacle of galactic engineering, the flagship of the Golden Age, carrying enough computational power to calculate the destiny of entire star systems. Yes? Admiral Kazak's scales shifted to a proud golden hue. The celestial sovereign was meant to usher in a new era of peace and prosperity. Its quantum core contains the accumulated knowledge of 1,000 civilizations. Its neural networks were grown from the merged consciousness of our greatest minds. Its very hull was cultivated from crystals, harvested from the heart of dying stars. Cool, Sarah nodded, blowing another bubble with her diagnostic gum. But whoever designed the power distribution system really overcomplicated things. Look at all these redundant quantum loops. It's like they never heard of Occam's razor. The Blade of Occam? Professor Nexus's form sparkled with recognition. The legendary weapon that could cut through the fabric of reality itself. No, it's more like— Keep it simple, stupid, Marcus explained, while somehow managing to connect a game console controller to the ship's auxiliary control panel. Speaking of which, we found the problem. Your quantum core isn't just misaligned, it's basically running the equivalent of Windows Vista. The alien observers stared blankly. That's bad, Alex clarified, now wearing what appeared to be modified 3D movie glasses. Really bad, but fixable. The good news is the core's base structure is sound. The bad news is we'll have to completely rewrite its operating protocols. The worst news is we'll have to do it while maintaining quantum coherence across all 11 dimensions. That's impossible. Dean Starweaver's tentacles flailed in distress. The quantum calculations alone would take centuries. The energy requirements would be astronomical. The risks of dimensional collapse would be— Hey, Sarah, Marcus called out. You still have that graphing calculator from high school? 15 minutes remaining, the AI announced cheerfully. Admiral Kazak watched in mounting horror as the humans began what appeared to be the technological equivalent of performing heart surgery with a spork. Somewhere in the distance, he could have sworn he heard the ancient architects of the Celestial Sovereign screaming, "Initiating quantum core reboot sequence." Sarah's voice echoed through the ship's communication system, somehow managing to sound both professional and manically excited at the same time. "Marcus, hit the power switch on my mark." Power switch? Admiral Kazak's scales rippled in confusion. What power switch? The Celestial Sovereign's quantum core can only be reactivated through a complex series of— His voice trailed off as Marcus pulled out what appeared to be a modified light switch mounted on a piece of wood. "Radio Shack clearance sale," he explained proudly. 90% off. 10 minutes remaining, the AI announced, its tone now carrying a distinct note of fascination. The observation deck had become increasingly crowded as word spread through the academy. Hundreds of alien engineers, scientists and students watched in a mixture of horror and amazement as the three humans continued their impossible repair operation. Alex was now skating around the quantum core on what appeared to be rocket-powered rollerblades, trailing diagnostic bubblegum behind them like some sort of deranged quantum physicist meets extreme sports enthusiast. The dimensional stability is still wobbling. We need more processing power. On it. Sarah pulled out several smartphones and began daisy-chaining them together with what looked suspiciously like paperclips and rubber bands. Good thing I never throw away my old phones. Professor Nexus's crystalline form was vibrating at frequencies that suggested she was either about to shatter or achieve enlightenment. But the quantum processing requirements. You would need a computer the size of a small moon to— Nah, Marcus interrupted, now wearing what appeared to be a colander on his head with various wires sticking out of it. You just need to think parallel instead of serial. See, each phone is processing in a slightly different quantum reality. Then we just average out the results. That's not how quantum mechanics works. Dean Starweaver's tentacles were now tied in actual knots. You can't just— The ship suddenly lurched, and a rainbow of quantum energy cascaded through the hull. Sarah, hanging from a makeshift harness made primarily of duct tape and hope, was now conducting what appeared to be an impromptu orchestra with a wrench and a screwdriver. "The quantum harmonics are aligning," she shouted. "Quick! We need something to stabilize the resonance pattern." "Got it covered." Alex pulled out a battered boombox and hit play. The sounds of Earth music, specifically Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody, began echoing through the quantum matrix. Incredibly, the ship's crystal structure began pulsing in rhythm with the music. 7 minutes remaining, the AI announced, now definitely sounding entertained. Admiral Karzak watched in stunned silence as Marcus began rewiring the main computer core, using what appeared to be a collection of Christmas lights and paperclips. "The neural pathways," he whispered in horror. "Those took 5 generations to grow." "Yeah, they were way too complicated," Marcus replied, his hands moving faster than seemed humanly possible. "Look, you don't need separate quantum channels for each thought process. Just set up a basic neural net and let it figure itself out. It's like teaching a kid to ride a bike. You gotta let go at some point." Sarah was now surfing on a piece of detached hull plating, using it to reach higher sections of the quantum core. She had somehow rigged a system of pulleys using yo-yo strings and was using it to realign massive crystal segments that should have required specialized equipment and months of careful calibration. 5 minutes remaining. "The quantum flux is still unstable," Alex called out, now wearing what appeared to be a modified virtual reality headset. "We need more power to the main core." "More power?" Professor Nexus's voice reached previously undiscovered octaves. "The core is already operating at maximum safe levels." "Safe is relative," Sarah grinned, pulling out what appeared to be a car battery. "Besides, we've got at least 3 backup plans." "And if those fail?" Dean Starweaver asked weakly. "Then we've got backup plans for our backup plans," Marcus replied cheerfully, now typing on what appeared to be 5 keyboards simultaneously. "And if those fail, well, that's what the duct tape is for." The quantum core began to pulse with increasing intensity. Streams of data flowed through the crystalline hull like rivers of light. The ship's AI began speaking in tongues. Specifically, it appeared to be reciting the lyrics to "Never Gonna Give You Up." 3 minutes remaining. Admiral Karzak watched as the humans' repair operation reached what appeared to be its chaotic crescendo. Sarah was now conducting quantum energy flows using 2 metallic coat hangers as makeshift wands. Marcus had somehow integrated a gaming console into the ship's main computer, claiming it needed better graphics processing. Alex was skateboarding around the quantum core, trailing cables that seemed to be made primarily of braided bubblegum wrappers and hope. "The dimensional barriers are stabilizing," Sarah announced triumphantly. "Marcus, hit it!" Marcus flipped the Radio Shack light switch. For a moment, everything went completely silent, then dark. Then, in a display that would have made any Vegas light show jealous, the Celestial Sovereign lit up like a quantum Christmas tree. 1 minute remaining, the AI announced, now speaking in what sounded suspiciously like autotune. The alien observers watched in collective amazement as systems that had taken centuries to calibrate came online in seconds. The quantum core hummed with perfect harmony, its crystalline structure now pulsing with a rainbow of energies that shouldn't have been possible, according to at least 7 different laws of physics. 30 seconds, Sarah high-fived Marcus, while Alex did a victory lap on their rocket rollerblades. The ship's hull was now not only repaired, but somehow seemed to be glowing with a more vibrant energy than ever before. 10 seconds! Admiral Karzak's scales had gone through so many colors of disbelief that he had invented several new ones. "Time's up," the AI announced cheerfully. "Diagnostic scan complete. All systems operating at 143% of original specifications. Would you like me to play We Are the Champions now?" As the Celestial Sovereign hummed with newfound power, Professor Nexus's crystalline form sparkled with genuine curiosity. "But how? How did you know this would work? These methods defy every principle of quantum engineering we've developed over millennia." Sarah, now casually sitting cross-legged on a floating piece of quantum crystalline hull, grinned. "Simple. We just applied some basic Earth concepts. Like, you know how when your Wi-Fi's acting up, you just reset the router?" "Reset the... what?" Dean Starweaver's tentacles twisted in confusion. "Exactly," Marcus chimed in, still wearing his colander helmet. "Your quantum core was basically suffering from the mother of all buffer overflows. You guys kept adding more and more complexity, like trying to fix a crashed computer by adding more RAM without ever clearing the cache." Alex nodded, finally removing their VR headset. "The real breakthrough was when we realized you were all thinking like, well, aliens." They paused, considering the irony of that statement. "No offense." "None taken," Admiral Karzak replied automatically, his scales shifting through shades of fascination. "Please continue." "See, you built this ship like it was a temple," Sarah explained, pulling out a half-eaten candy bar. "Everything had to be perfect, precise, grown over centuries. But sometimes you need to think less like a priest and more like a mechanic trying to fix their car before work." She broke the candy bar in half. "Your quantum core was like this chocolate bar. Break it and you've got rough edges. Try to put it back together perfectly, and you'll spend forever aligning each molecule, but add a little heat." She pressed the halves together, letting them melt slightly. "And it works just fine. Maybe not prettier, but definitely stronger at the break point." The alien engineers watched in stunned silence, as their most fundamental beliefs about quantum engineering were being compared to melted candy. "That's why the Christmas lights worked," Marcus added. "They're not just lights. They're a simple way to visualize quantum flow patterns. When one bulb breaks in a series, it affects the whole string, just like your quantum pathways." Professor Nexus's form shimmered with sudden understanding. "The kazoo! The music! You weren't just making noise." "Sound waves," Alex beamed. "Everything vibrates at its own frequency. Your quantum crystalline matrix isn't just a fancy building material. It's basically a giant tuning fork. That's why Bohemian Rhapsody works so well. Those harmonics, pure genius." Dean Starweaver's tentacles uncurled slowly. "And the bubblegum?" "Oh, that was just bubblegum," Sarah shrugged. "But it's really good at finding microfractures. Plus, I was hungry." Admiral Karzak floated closer to the hull, his scales now shimmering with an entirely new color, one that traditionally represented the moment of enlightenment in his species. "So all this time we were..." "Overthinking it," all 3 humans chorused. "Engineering isn't just about perfect calculations and centuries of refinement," Sarah explained, patting the hull affectionately. "Sometimes it's about looking at a problem sideways, upside down, and through a kaleidoscope made of paperclips and determination." Marcus started unhooking his phone array. You guys built something amazing, don't get me wrong, but you got so caught up in the right way to do things that you forgot the most important rule of engineering. Which is? Professor Nexus asked, her crystalline form leaning forward eagerly. If it looks stupid but works, it isn't stupid, Alex declared proudly. The ship's AI, which had been quietly running diagnostics, suddenly spoke up. Warning. Quantum efficiency now exceeding original design specifications by 150%. New features detected. Would you like me to enable quantum drift mode? Absolutely not, Admiral Karzak shouted just as all three humans yelled, yes. The gathered alien observers watched in a mixture of horror and admiration as their most sophisticated warship, the culmination of 10,000 years of careful engineering, executed what could only be described as a quantum donut in 11-dimensional space. And somehow, impossibly, it all made perfect sense. Wait, what's that flashing? Dean Starweaver's tentacles pointed at a rapidly blinking crystal segment in the quantum core. Sarah's eyes widened. Oh, crud! Marcus! We've got a quantum cascade forming in the secondary matrix! Impossible! Admiral Karzak's scales flashed emergency red. The safety protocols are trying to revert to factory settings, Marcus shouted, his fingers flying across 5 keyboards simultaneously. The ship thinks it's still in the shipyard 10,000 years ago. The Celestial Sovereign shuddered, its newly repaired systems flickering like a stuttering hologram. Rainbow-colored quantum energy began leaking from seams that shouldn't have existed, creating what looked like the universe's most dangerous light show. System restoration initiating, the AI announced in what sounded suspiciously like a Windows XP startup sound, reverting to original configuration in 60 seconds. No, no, no! Alex screamed, rocket skating around the core at ludicrous speed. If it reverts now, the new quantum pathways will collapse. It'll be like trying to divide by zero while juggling antimatter. Sarah pulled out her trusty kazoo. Quick! We need to stabilize the harmonic resonance. Marcus, boot up the emergency playlist. Already on it! Marcus yanked out his phone, now trailing quantum energy like static electricity. But we need more power to the primary buffers. The ship groaned, crystal segments grinding against each other as ancient protocols battled with human innovation. Alien observers fled the observation deck as warning signals flashed in 17 different dimensions. 30 seconds to reversion, the AI chirped helpfully. Sarah, the quantum manifold, Alex shouted, tossing her what appeared to be a modified Nintendo controller. Cross the streams. You told me never to cross the streams, she yelled back, but grabbed the controller anyway. That was for the coffee maker! This is different! Admiral Karzak watched in horror as Sarah quite literally crossed 2 streams of pure quantum energy using the game controller like a cosmic joystick. The resulting light show would have put the Aurora Borealis to shame. 15 seconds? Marcus had somehow wired his colander helmet directly into the ship's mainframe. Almost. Got it. Just need to... There. The ship's crystal structure rang like a massive bell. Every piece of Earth technology they jury-rigged into the systems began glowing with impossible energy. 5 seconds. Play it now, Sarah screamed. Marcus hit play on his phone. The opening notes of Sweet Home Alabama blasted through the quantum matrix one more time. System reversion in 3, 2, 1. Everything went silent, then dark, then... The Celestial Sovereign hummed to life, its quantum core pulsing with a steady, healthy glow. The AI's voice returned to normal, though it was now inexplicably speaking with a slight southern accent. System stabilization complete, y'all. All quantum protocols successfully integrated. Would anyone like some sweet tea? Admiral Karzak stood in stunned silence, his scales cycling through colors that hadn't been seen since the founding of the Galactic Engineering Academy. Before him, the Celestial Sovereign wasn't just functional, it was dancing. Literally dancing, its quantum field pulsing in perfect rhythm to what the humans called disco. Well, Professor Nexus finally managed, her crystalline form still vibrating from the excitement, I suppose this means we'll need to update our engineering curriculum. Update it? Dean Starweaver's tentacles were still partly knotted from stress. We need to burn it and start over. Did you see how they integrated a quantum processor array using nothing but old phones and paperclips? Sarah, Marcus, and Alex stood before the assembled alien faculty, covered in quantum residue and looking entirely too pleased with themselves. Their primitive toolbox, now slightly radioactive and humming what sounded suspiciously like "Stayin' Alive," sat at their feet. "So," Sarah grinned, blowing one final diagnostic bubble with her quantum-infused gum, "do we pass the practical exam?" Admiral Karzak's scales settled on a new colour, one that perfectly matched the human's gleaming eyes. "Pass? You've revolutionized 10,000 years of engineering in 30 minutes, using bubblegum and... What was that Earth device again?" "A kazoo," Marcus supplied helpfully. "Right, a kazoo." The Admiral straightened formally. "The Academy would be honoured if you'd consider teaching a course." "Awesome," Alex beamed. "By the way, you might want to check your quantum email. We may have accidentally given the ship's AI a TikTok account." From somewhere within the Celestial Sovereign came the unmistakable sound of a warship trying to learn the latest viral dance trend.